The battle began with normal weapons. The human ships moved like dancers through space, dodging the massive energy beams from the Devourer fleet. Their small vessels spun and twisted between the enemy fire, too fast and agile for the big ships to hit easily. Zero watched from the command center as the human pilots used conventional tactics first. They fired their own weapons, small but precise, targeting weak points on the enemy ships. A few Devourer vessels took damage, but it was like trying to fight an ocean with a cup of water. There were simply too many of them. Why are they not using their power yet? Zira asked. Council Leader Hayes watched the screens with calm eyes. They are giving the enemy a chance to retreat. We always hope other species will choose peace when they see they cannot win easily. But the Devourers never retreat. As if to prove her point, more enemy ships moved forward, forming a wall of metal and weapons that stretched across space. They began firing all at once, filling the darkness with deadly energy. Several human ships had to retreat, their shields glowing dangerously bright. Then Marcus's voice came over every communication channel in the fleet, deep and strong and somehow filled with the sound of distant stars. "For those we protect," he said. Zero watched her husband's ship begin to change. Light started flowing around it. Not reflected light, but something that seemed to come from the ship itself. The light grew brighter and brighter until she had to look away from the screen. When she looked back, the ship was gone. In its place was a figure that moved through space like a living star. Marcus had left his vessel and was flying through the vacuum, wrapped in energy that looked like captured lightning in solar wind. How is he alive out there? Zero whispered. "The stellar integrated do not need to breathe when they transform," Dr. Chan explained. "They become part of the cosmic forces themselves. Space is not empty to them. It is full of energy they can use." Marcus raised his hands, and meteoric power gathered around him. Zira had seen meteors before, burning rocks that fell from space and lit up the sky. But what Marcus created was different. This was the pure force that drove meteors, the energy of celestial bodies crashing together at impossible speeds. He threw his hands forward, and a wave of meteoric energy shot toward the Devourer ships. Where it hit, the enemy vessels did not just explode. They came apart at the most basic level, their metal turning back into the elements it had been made from. 3 massive ships simply ceased to exist. Around him, the other stellar integrated began their own transformations. Zira saw a woman whose body became pure electromagnetic force, sending lightning that jumped from ship to ship, shutting down their systems. A man who controlled gravity, crushing entire formations of enemy vessels like they were made of paper. Another who channeled solar wind, stripping away armor and weapons with storms of charged particles. They moved through the Devourer fleet like gods walking among mortals. Every gesture destroyed ships that had conquered worlds. Every step forward sent the enemy falling back in confusion and fear. "Impossible," whispered the communications officer. "The Devourer ships are trying to retreat." Zira looked at the screen and saw that it was true. The great fleet that had never been defeated, that had consumed the technology of a dozen civilizations, was turning away from 36 human warriors. But Marcus was not done. He flew directly into the center of the enemy formation, where their command ships waited. These were the largest vessels, covered with weapons taken from every species they had destroyed. They fired everything they had at him. The energy beams and missiles passed through Marcus like he was made of starlight. He reached out and touched one of the command ships with his bare hand. The ship began to glow, and then it collapsed into itself, becoming a tiny point of light that flickered and went out. "He is creating artificial gravity wells," Dr. Chun said in amazement. "He's making the ship collapse under its own weight." Another stellar integrated warrior joined Marcus at the center of the fleet. This one seemed to control cosmic radiation, sending waves of energy that made the enemy ship's own power sources explode from the inside. A third warrior appeared, one who could manipulate the electromagnetic spectrum, making the Devourer ships invisible to each other, so they began firing on their own forces. The battle turned into something that was more like a natural disaster than a war. The human warriors moved through space like forces of nature, reshaping reality around them. They were no longer just people fighting with weapons. They had become living embodiments of the power that drives stars and planets. Zira realized she was holding her breath. In less than an hour, the Stellar Integrated had destroyed more than half the Devourer fleet. The enemy ships were breaking formation, trying to escape, but space itself seemed to be working against them. Marcus appeared on the main screen, flying directly toward the command center. Even through the cameras, Zira could see the cosmic energy flowing around him. He looked like a meteor himself, burning with the power of stellar collision. "Marcus," she whispered. He seemed to hear her somehow, even across the distance of space. He turned toward their planet, toward the command center, and she saw his face. It was still him. Still the quiet man who grew gardens and wrote poetry. But now his eyes held the light of distant suns. He raised his hand in what might have been a wave, or might have been a final gesture of power. Around him, the last of the Devourer ships began to break apart. Their advanced technology no match for the fundamental forces of the universe. In 2 hours, it was over. The fleet that had destroyed civilizations was nothing but scattered debris floating in space. The mechanical plague that had consumed world after world had been stopped by 36 humans who wielded the power of stars. But as Zira watched the warriors returning to their ships, she could see that victory had come with a price. Their movements were slower now, more careful. When they transformed back into their human forms, she could see the cost written on their faces. Marcus's ship docked at the command center, and Zira ran to meet him. When he stepped out, she saw immediately how much the battle had aged him. His dark hair was now white at the temples, and there were lines around his eyes that had not been there before. But he was alive, and he was smiling. "Is it over?" she asked. Marcus nodded, taking her hands in his. His touch was still warm, still gentle. "It is over. Your people are safe." Zira looked into his eyes and saw that the cosmic light was fading, leaving behind the man she had married, the quiet gardener who had saved her world. 3 weeks after the battle, Zira stood in Marcus's garden, watching him plant new flowers. His hands moved more slowly than before, and he sometimes had to stop to rest. The fight against the Devourer fleet had aged him 20 years in a single day, but he seemed at peace with the cost. "The blue ones will bloom in spring," he said, carefully placing seeds in the dark soil. "I thought you might like them. They match your skin." Zira smiled and helped him water the planted rows. She had learned to love this quiet work, the simple act of making things grow. After so much destruction and war, it felt like the most important thing in the universe. Across the garden, they could see the refugee ships landing at New Terra spaceport. The Human Council had finally opened their world to the survivors from the destroyed systems. With the Devourer threat gone, there was no longer a need to hide their true nature. "How many people have come?" Marcus asked. "Almost 2 million so far," Zira said. "Representatives from 12 different species. They all want to thank the humans who saved them. And they all want to understand how you did it." Marcus nodded thoughtfully. "Dr. Chun is working with their scientists, explaining what we can about stellar integration. Not everything, but enough to satisfy their curiosity." The Human Council had decided to share some of their secrets with the galaxy. Not the full truth about their capabilities, but enough to explain how they had defeated an impossible enemy. They spoke of humans who could bond with cosmic forces, of warriors who sacrificed their own life force to protect others. Most species were amazed. A few were frightened, but all of them were grateful. Council Leader Hayes asked me to give you a message, Zira said. The Galactic Senate wants to meet with human representatives. They want to discuss a formal alliance. Marcus laughed, a sound that was both happy and sad. 300 years of hiding, and now everyone wants to be our friend. Are you worried about it? Yes and no, Marcus said, sitting down on a stone bench. We always knew this day would come eventually. We just hoped it would be later, when we were more ready. Zira sat beside him, taking his hand. His fingers were thinner than before, marked with the cost of the power he had used. Several of the other stellar integrated had aged even more dramatically. 3 of them had white hair now, and 2 were using walking sticks. Do you regret it? She asked. What you gave up to save my people. Marcus looked at her with those kind eyes that had first surprised her. Zira, I need to tell you something. When the council chose me for this marriage, it was not just because of my power. It was because they knew I was dying anyway. Zira felt her heart stop. What do you mean? I have been stellar integrated for 15 years. Each time I used my power before this battle, it took months or years from my life. Even without fighting the Devourer fleet, I probably only had 5 or 10 years left. Tears started to fall down Zira's face, but Marcus gently wiped them away. Listen to me, he said. I have spent my whole adult life knowing I would die young. I made peace with that long ago. But then I met you, and for the first time, I had something to live for besides duty. How long do you have now? Marcus smiled. Dr. Chun thinks maybe 2 or 3 years. Maybe more if I'm careful. But Zira, they will be good years. Happy years. I get to spend them with someone I love. The word love hung in the air between them. They had never said it before, though Zira had been feeling it for weeks. I love you too, she said quietly. I never expected to, but I do. They sat in the garden as the sun set behind New Terra's mountains. In the distance, they could see the lights of the expanding refugee camps where people from across the galaxy were building new homes. What happens now? Zira asked. To the galaxy, I mean. Everything has changed. Marcus considered this. The Devourer fleet was not the only threat out there. There are other dangerous species, other wars that might need to be stopped. The galaxy is a dangerous place, and now they know humans are willing to help protect it. Will your people take on that responsibility? Some will, Marcus said. The younger stellar integrated, the ones who still have decades of life ahead of them. They will probably form some kind of peacekeeping force. But carefully, and only when absolutely necessary. Zira thought about this. Her own people were talking about rebuilding their military, but also about joining whatever human-led peace organization might be created. After seeing what real power looked like, the old ways of thinking about war and conquest seemed foolish. What about us? She asked. Marcus squeezed her hand. I was hoping you would stay here with me. Help me tend the garden. Maybe help establish relations between our peoples. I have been thinking about that, Zira said. My father died 3 days ago, peacefully in his sleep. The council says I am now queen of what remains of our people. Marcus looked surprised. I did not know. I am sorry for your loss. Do not be sorry. He died happy, knowing our people were safe. But now I have a choice to make. I can return home and be a traditional queen, or I can stay here and be something new. What do you want to do? Zira looked out over the garden, over the refugee camps, over the peaceful human city that had become her home. I want to build something that has never existed before. A government that includes multiple species working together. Not an empire built on conquest, but a community built on protection. Marcus smiled, the first truly happy smile she had seen from him since the battle. That sounds like something worth spending a few years working on. Only a few years? Well, Marcus said, Dr. Chun might be wrong about my time left. He often is about medical things. And even if he is right, we can do a lot of good in 2 or 3 years. Zyra kissed him, there in the garden with the stars beginning to appear overhead. Some of those stars now shone on worlds that were safe because of what he had sacrificed. Others shone on new worlds where refugees were building better lives. Then we had better get started, she said, as they walked back toward their house. Zyra realized something that surprised her. She had married Marcus to save her people from the Devourer fleet, but in the end, her people had saved his people too. They had given humans a reason to stop hiding, to step forward and become the protectors they were meant to be. The galaxy was about to become a very different place, and she and Marcus would spend whatever time they had helping to shape that future. One garden and one new friendship at a time. Behind them, New Terra's 3 moons rose into the star-filled sky, shining down on a world that had finally stopped pretending to be weak, and a love that had grown from duty into something that might change everything. The Devourer fleet filled the space above New Terra like a dark cloud. Zyra stood in the human command center, watching the screens that showed thousands upon thousands of enemy ships. Each ship was huge, made of black metal that seemed to swallow light. They had weapons that could crack planets and shields that had never been broken. 10,437 ships, the human commander reported to the council. His voice was calm, as if he was talking about the weather. They are requesting our surrender. Denied, said Council Leader Hayes, an older woman with gray hair and steady eyes. Signal the fleet to prepare for engagement. Zyra stared at the screens, showing the human fleet moving to meet the enemy. 36 ships. Small, graceful vessels that looked like toys compared to the Devourer fleet. She had seen the records of what these enemy ships could do. They had destroyed entire star systems, absorbed the technology of dozens of civilizations, and grown stronger with each victory. This is madness, Zyra said. You will all die. And for what? Why not evacuate while you still can? Council Leader Hayes turned to look at her. Princess Zyra, your husband has not told you about our capabilities? He has told me nothing useful. Only riddles and promises. The council members looked at each other. Finally, Hayes nodded to someone behind Zyra. Perhaps it is time, the council leader said. Dr. Chun, please explain to the princess what her people have allied themselves with. An old man stepped forward. He looked like Marcus, and Zyra realized this must be his father or grandfather. Princess, what I am about to tell you must never be shared with anyone outside this room. The survival of our people depends on secrecy. Zyra nodded, though she felt confused and frustrated. 300 years ago, when humans first traveled between the stars, we discovered something in the deep space between galaxies. Not aliens, but something else. Raw energy left over from the birth and death of stars. We called it stellar matter. Dr. Chen gestured to a wall screen that showed images of space, dark and empty, except for strange, glowing clouds. Most humans who touched this stellar matter died instantly. Their bodies could not handle the energy, but a few survived. Very few. And those who did survive were changed forever. The screen changed to show images of humans, but humans who looked different. Their eyes glowed with inner light, and energy seemed to flow around them like living flame. We call them the Stellar Integrated. Humans who have bonded with the power of stars themselves. They can channel cosmic energy, manipulate gravity, control electromagnetic forces. They become living weapons capable of destroying entire fleets. Zyra felt her knees go weak. Marcus? Marcus is the most powerful stellar integrated human we have ever seen. He can channel the energy of supernovas, shape meteoric force with his will, move through space as if it were air. He is not just your husband, Princess. He is our greatest weapon." The command center fell silent except for the hum of computers. Zira stared at the screens, showing the approaching battle, trying to understand what she had just learned. "But if you have such power, why do you hide it? Why do you let the galaxy think you are weak?" Hayes answered this time. "Because if other species knew what we were capable of, they would never leave us alone. Some would try to control us, to use us as weapons in their wars. Others would try to destroy us out of fear. We have learned that it is better to appear harmless. The stellar integration process is also dangerous," Dr. Chun added. "It burns through the user's life force. Each time they use their power, they age. A single battle can cost them years or even decades of life. We only use this power when we absolutely must." Zira thought about Marcus, his quiet kindness, the way he cared for his garden and wrote poetry. "How long does he have?" "That depends on what he has to do today," Hayes said gently. "But Princess, you should know that he volunteered for this. When we told him about the treaty, about the marriage, he could have refused. Instead, he said that protecting innocent people was worth any cost." On the screens, the Devourer fleet was moving into attack formation. Their weapons were powering up, preparing to destroy the human ships with overwhelming force. "Where is Marcus now?" Zira asked. "In the preparation chambers with the other pilots. They are getting ready to transform." "Transform?" Dr. Chun looked sad. "To use their power safely, the Stellar Integrated must let go of their human limitations. For a time, they become something more than human, but also something less. They become pure energy, pure purpose. It is difficult to watch." Zira felt tears on her face, though she had not realized she was crying. "I want to see him." Hayes shook her head. "The preparation chambers are sealed, but you can speak to him over the communication system if you wish." They brought her to a console where she could send a message to the fleet. She did not know what to say. How do you talk to someone who is about to risk everything to save people he barely knows? "Marcus," she said into the microphone. "I understand now. Why you could not tell me. Why everyone was so serious. I want you to know that I am proud to be your wife. Come back to me if you can." Marcus's voice came back, but it sounded different. Deeper, with an echo that seemed to come from far away. "Zira, whatever happens today, remember that you gave us a reason to stop hiding. Your people's courage inspired us to be brave too. Take care of our garden." The communication line went silent. On the screens, the human ships were moving into position. Zira could see the Devourer fleet beginning their attack, weapons firing beams of energy that could melt mountains. "How many Stellar Integrated do you have?" Zira asked. 36, Hayes said quietly. "One for each ship." "It is everyone we have." Zira stared at the screen. 36 humans against 10,000 alien warships. It should have been hopeless. But for the first time since this all began, she felt something that might have been hope. On the screen, she watched as the first human ship began to glow with inner light. Then another. Then all of them, like stars being born in the darkness of space. The battle was about to begin. Zira had never been on a human world before. New Terra was smaller than her home planet, with 3 moons that hung in the sky like silver coins. The cities were built low to the ground, with lots of green spaces and gardens between the buildings. Everything felt peaceful, which made no sense when a deadly fleet was coming to destroy them all. Marcus showed her to their new home, a simple house on a hill overlooking the main city. It had a large garden where he grew vegetables and flowers. Inside, the walls were covered with books and paintings. It felt more like a place where a teacher might live, not someone preparing for war. "Your people seem very calm," Zira said as they sat on the porch, drinking tea that Marcus had made from herbs in his garden. Do they understand what is coming? Marcus nodded slowly. They understand. We have been watching the Devour fleet for months. We know exactly how dangerous they are. Then, why is everyone acting normal? I saw children playing in the parks, people shopping in the markets. On my world, everyone was hiding in shelters. Different peoples handle fear in different ways, Marcus said. My people believe in living fully until the moment comes to fight. Zira did not understand, but she was starting to learn that there were many things about humans she did not understand. Over the next few days, she noticed strange things. Every morning, she watched from her window as people gathered in the parks to practice what looked like fighting moves. Old people, young people, even children, all moving through the same careful patterns. When she asked Marcus about it, he said it was just exercise. We believe in keeping our bodies and minds ready, he explained. Ready for what? For whatever comes. This was the kind of answer Marcus gave to most of her questions. He was kind and patient, always willing to talk about books or plants or art. But whenever she asked about human military capabilities or defense plans, his answers became vague. She started exploring the city on her own. The humans she met were polite but careful around her. When she entered a room, conversations would stop. People would bow respectfully, but she could feel them watching her with curious eyes. One day, she found herself in a part of the city that seemed different. The buildings were made of metal instead of wood and stone. When she tried to go closer, a polite guard stopped her. "I am sorry, Princess," the guard said. "This area is restricted." "What is in there?" "Training facilities." "Not dangerous, just private." Zira looked past the guard and saw more people practicing those same fighting movements. But these people moved differently, faster, more precisely. And sometimes, just for a moment, she thought she saw flashes of light around their hands. That evening, she asked Marcus about the restricted area. He was quiet for a long time before answering. "Every people has things they keep private," he said. "Things that are important to their survival. Are you preparing to fight the Devour fleet with those exercises?" Marcus looked out the window at the stars. More and more, the sky was filled with dark shapes as the enemy fleet grew closer. "Zira, I want you to know that whatever happens, I care about you. This started as a political marriage, but you are a good person. I hope we will have time to really know each other." This was not an answer to her question, but the way he said it made her heart feel strange. She was beginning to like this quiet man who read poetry and grew flowers. The next day, urgent news arrived. The Devour fleet had destroyed 2 more star systems, growing larger as they consumed each world's resources and technology. Refugee ships were fleeing past New Terra, begging for help. The Human Council met them with supply ships and offered to take their wounded, but they would not let the refugees land on New Terra. Zero was angry. "These people have lost everything. How can you turn them away?" Marcus sat with her as she watched the refugee ships pass by their window. "The council has good reasons," he said. "What reasons?" "We have room. We have food. Are humans too proud to help people who are suffering?" "No," Marcus said quietly. "But there are things about our world that must stay secret. If we let too many outsiders in right now, those secrets could be discovered. And then we would not be able to help anyone." Zira stared at him. What secrets could possibly be worth more than helping those people? Marcus took her hands in his. His fingers were rough from garden work, but gentle. "Tomorrow, the Devour fleet will reach our system. They will demand our surrender first, like they always do. When we refuse, they will attack. And then, Zira, you will understand everything. I promise you that. Will you survive it?" she asked. The question surprised her. A few days ago, she had thought of Marcus as just a political necessity. Now the idea of losing him scared her. Marcus smiled, but it was a sad smile. That depends on many things. But I want you to know that I will do everything in my power to save your people. Everything. That night, Zira could not sleep. She walked out into the garden where Marcus was sitting, looking up at the stars. The enemy fleet was close enough now that she could see their dark shapes moving against the starlight. "Are you afraid?" she asked. "Yes," Marcus said, "but not of dying. I am afraid that what we have to do will change everything. Once the galaxy sees what humans are really capable of, there will be no going back to the quiet life we have enjoyed. What are humans really capable of?" Marcus stood up and touched her face gently. She noticed that his hand felt warm, warmer than it should in the cool night air. "You married me to save your people," he said. "But the truth is, your people are going to save ours too. For 300 years, we have hidden what we are. Tomorrow, we will have to show the galaxy our true nature. And after that, everything will be different." Before Zira could ask what he meant, alarms began sounding across the city. In the sky above, dark shapes were moving into position. The Devourer fleet had arrived. Marcus looked up at the enemy ships, and for just a moment, Zira thought she saw light flickering in his eyes. Not reflected light, but light that came from inside. "It is time," he said. "Tomorrow you will see who you really married." Princess Zira stood in the great throne room of her dying world. The walls around her shook as another explosion hit somewhere in the capital city. Through the tall windows, she could see the orange glow of fires burning across the skyline. The Devourer fleet had come to her star system, just like they had come to so many others. Her father, King Velos, lay on his throne breathing slowly and with great effort. The doctor said he had maybe days left to live. The stress of watching 3 of their worlds burn had broken his heart, they said. Now only their home world remained, and the dark ships in space above them grew more numerous each hour. "Father," Zira said, kneeling beside the throne, "the council is asking what we should do. Our fleet is gone. Our allies have run away. The people are scared." King Velos opened his tired eyes and looked at his daughter. She was young, only 25 years old, with the blue skin and silver hair of their people. She had been trained to rule one day, but not like this. Not when everything was ending. "There is one way," he said in a voice so quiet she had to lean close to hear. "The old treaties. The ones from before you were born." Zira frowned. She knew about the old treaties her grandfather had made with various worlds. Most of those worlds were gone now, destroyed by wars or disasters. "Which treaty, father?" "The humans," he whispered. "New Terra. There is a defensive pact. Very old. Very specific." Zira felt her heart sink. She knew about the human colony on the edge of their star system. Everyone did, but no one paid much attention to them. They were a small, quiet people who kept to themselves. They had only been traveling between stars for a few hundred years, which made them very young compared to most species in the galaxy. What help could they possibly give? "Father, the humans are farmers and artists. They have maybe 50 small ships. The Devourer fleet has 10,000. King Velos reached out and took her hand with his cold fingers. "The treaty can only be activated one way: marriage, a union between our royal house and their leaders. It binds them to defend us with everything they have." Zira stared at her father. Marriage to some alien she had never met, just to gain the help of a weak colony that would probably be destroyed anyway. But she looked out the window again at the burning city, and she thought about the millions of people counting on them to find a way. "I will do it," she said. The king smiled for the first time in weeks. "I hoped you would say that. I have already sent word to their council. They are considering it." 2 days later, a small human ship landed at the royal spaceport. Zira stood waiting with her guards and advisors, wearing her finest dress and the crown jewels of her house. She expected to meet some rough military commander or perhaps an old politician looking to gain power through marriage. Instead, a quiet man stepped off the ship. He was tall for a human, with dark hair and kind eyes. He wore simple clothes, not a uniform or royal robes. Behind him came 3 other humans, also dressed simply, who looked around with careful, watching eyes. "Princess Zyra," the man said, bowing slightly. "I am Marcus Chun. I have come to discuss the treaty your father mentioned." Zyra studied him. He looked to be maybe 30 years old, with strong hands that looked like they worked in soil more than war rooms. His voice was gentle, and he seemed more nervous than eager. "You are the one I would marry?" she asked. Marcus nodded. "If you agree to the terms. I want you to know that I did not seek this out. My people chose me for reasons I cannot fully explain to you yet." "What reasons?" Marcus looked at the humans behind him, then back at her. "That must wait. First, we need to know if you truly want this alliance. Marriage between our peoples is not something we take lightly. Once it is done, we will honor the treaty completely. But there is no going back." Another explosion shook the ground. In the sky above, more dark ships were arriving. Zira looked at this quiet human man and wondered what choice she really had. "I agree," she said. "When?" "Tomorrow, if you are willing. The ceremony can be simple." That evening, Zira walked in the palace gardens with Marcus. She wanted to know who she was about to marry, even if it was just for politics. To her surprise, he was easy to talk to. He told her about his work growing food on New Terra, about the books he liked to read, about the poetry he wrote in his spare time. "You do not seem like a military leader," she said. Marcus smiled sadly. "I am not, in the way you would think. But my people believe I can help yours. I hope they are right. Can you tell me anything about how? Your ships are so few, and the Devourer fleet grows stronger every day. They have the weapons and technology of a dozen conquered worlds." Marcus stopped walking and looked up at the stars. Many of them were hidden now by the smoke from the burning city. "Princess Zyra, there are things about my people that we do not share with the galaxy. Good reasons for keeping secrets. Tomorrow, after we are married, I will be bound by treaty to defend your people with my life. That is all I can promise you right now." Zyra felt frustrated, but also strangely reassured. There was something in his voice, a certainty that she did not understand but somehow trusted. The next morning, they were married in a small ceremony. Marcus had wanted to do it on his ship with human customs, but Zyra insisted on the palace. She wore the traditional wedding dress of her people, white silk with silver threading. Marcus wore what looked like a military uniform, though it was unlike any she had seen before. The human witnesses stood very straight and serious during the ceremony. When it was finished and they were officially husband and wife, Marcus kissed her hand and said, "Now your people are my people. I will protect them." As they walked out of the palace, alarms began to sound across the city. The Devourer fleet was moving closer. Soon, they would begin their final attack. Zyra looked at her new husband and wondered if she had just married a man who would die trying to save her world, or if there was something about humans that the galaxy did not understand.